It's all about you, Biz.
It's all about me. Oh, God. Well, then it's a good thing I started with a yawn so everybody knows where I'm at this week. Hello and welcome to There Is No Crying in Crochet. This is the podcast where we try to take your everyday crochet frustrations and we give you some solutions with a lot of hoo-ha mixed in the middle.
And fun and laughter and all of that kind of
stuff. That's right.
We start our and we do it really well.
Great big yawn. Anyway.
I think, Biz, is a statement of affairs on the month of January. May I just
we were just talking about how the weeks are fast, but the days are long through the month of January, and just feels like it's been a lot.
Holy cow.
Anyway, so let's get back to business. I am Biz from Busy Crochet. This is my good friend
Deb from Madam Stitch.
Yay, we are here. Last week couldn't be here. What a bug swept through my house, and believe me, you did not want me here with my puke bucket. So we're gonna avoid that one. So anyway, if you are following us on YouTube, please like and subscribe our channels. I'm Busy Crochet. She is Madam Stitch Crochet. Follow us. We are trying to upload new material for you all the time, as well as we are here every single Friday, except when we're sick and, that kind of stuff. But we are here every single Friday at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern with our podcast. And if you're watching on Facebook, give StreamYard permission to display your name so we can see who you are in the chat. I know we have a lot of people that have been joining us on YouTube, which is exciting because it's a different avenue and not as many people through Facebook anymore. But I really enjoy the fact that I can see who you are. Hi, Firelight Creations and Dawn. Thank you so much for chitting and chatting. We love talking with everybody. And so this week, we have a subject, and I'm kind of getting to it. We have a subject that we're hoping is going to kind of help as we're moving out of like the mindful beginning of the year and all of that stuff. This will help in the mindfulness of the rest of your crocheting. But before we do that, how has your 2 weeks been since we spoke last?
Well, extremely busy. First of all, the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl, so woot woot for that.
I could handle that.
That was a fun game to watch. So that was big in our household. We've had some interesting snow events around here. Not deep, but kind of shutting the place down sort of snow. High winds. I know you guys suffered from some high winds and things like that. It's just crazy. And I don't know, it's making me want spring to be here. I know I shouldn't do that. But it's kind of making me want spring to be here. It's funny. It's been so cold. How cold has it been, Deb? It's been so cold that when it gets up to 35 or 40, I swear to you, the coat and the scarf goes off. It feels downright balmy around here.
Yes. I
Seriously.
Remember in Wisconsin, that's what it was like.
Right? So today is rainy and gross, but it's 45 degrees outside. So we're going to go with that. Well, Biz, we know what's been going on with you because you had some major illnesses in your family. Anything else of note to go on?
Yeah, but we also had Snowmageddon last week.
That's right.
Yeah, we in Florida. I'm just checking. Yeah, the 20th through, basically Monday through Friday. It wasn't there Monday, but Tuesday it started. We got hit in the panhandle of Florida with 7 inches up to 10 inches in some areas. We don't get.
Oh, holy cow!
Like the last time I think they had measurable snow was in like 1870 or something like that. It was just ridiculous. But we the whole city shut down. I mean, the whole city. The last time that happened was in 2014. We had 3 days of ice and nobody went anywhere for anything because we don't have salt trucks and all of that kind of stuff down here. As it was, we had two guys sitting on the back end. I don't know if you've seen the video because it kind of went around. In Pensacola, we had two guys sitting on the back of a pickup truck, dipping their hands in a thing of ice, or not ice, but salt, flinging it on both
No.
sides. That was our salt distribution.
So that's your snow truck, right? Your salt truck. That's great.
God bless those guys. It was so funny. But yeah, that did not. We were not like moving, getting on the road until like some people braved it on Thursday. I had a fit. My husband went to work on Friday, but he went anyway. He needed to be there. But I mean, my daughter she stayed home the whole week because we've got the 3 Mile bridge, which goes over the bay between
that freezes,
and Gulf Breeze, which is a little island right next to Pensacola Beach. And so that bridge, if you can't get over that, you really can't go anywhere. And she works, of course, in Gulf Breeze. So yeah, I mean, it was just, the whole thing was just shut down. It was fun for about 2 days, and then everybody started kind of crawling on each other, and everybody got cabin fever real fast. So I mean, when you're in Wisconsin, you're like, yes, snow days, we finally get to stay in, can't move around. And in Florida, we're like, oh my God, the world is ending. So
yeah, I think during our snow events, the boys may have had 2-hour delays. Long enough for them to clear the roads, and you go, all right, you're out.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. But today it's like, let's see, what is it today? We had rain this morning, and it is currently 68, but it was 72 earlier when I looked. So I mean, we're back to normal degrees. Can't complain too much.
Okay, that just makes me makes me very sad, but okay.
Up to 80 degrees in Austin today. Yeah, you guys got hit with snow too. Like Texas, everybody got lambasted with it.
Yep.
That's been my excitement the last couple of weeks. I was sick and we had snow. So
it would have been okay, I think, if it had happened all at the same time, because you couldn't go anywhere while you were sick.
Yeah.
Right? So I
got sick at the end of it. And when everybody was starting to go out, it was like, great, I get to stay home still. So,
well, we're glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, we're doing better here. All right, so let's talk about what we're going to talk about this week, and which is what we were going to talk about last week, and it's about fixing the mistakes in your crochet. Gosh, we're on episode 74 already. Wow, isn't that funny? We just started this on a fluke, and now here we are. Alrighty.
You have to wonder, actually, at some point we need to get people to give us some ideas for future episodes, because there's only so much in these brains, right? Yeah. But anyway, I digress.
All right. So we're talking about mistakes. And the first thing that we really need to do is first we need to notice that we've made a mistake. How many times have you been working along, singing a song, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, there's this hole. And sometimes it's in a granny square that you've already attached to.
Oh gosh, yes.
Something, and you have to decide, do I rip all of that out and redo it? Or sometimes it's just like a missed something. So how do you usually view those? Like, are you an instant ripper aparter, or are you nobody's going to notice it?
Well, I always go into evaluation mode. How much is anybody but me going to notice this? And can I futz my way around it? So if it's a hole, can I stitch that up in a way that it looks like it's the original? Right? Yeah. Or if it's already attached as a granny square, I'm going to move heaven and earth to not take that apart, because I learned this. I was designing a sweater, got it all the way sewn together and hated it. So now I'm trying to repurpose the yarn. So I want to take it apart and wind the ball so that I can do something different with it. And I discovered how well I sew things together. So I get really well, to the point of I was this close to clipping the thread. I don't want to do that. So anyway, I will evaluate who's going to care beyond me, with the idea that I do believe that that every handmade piece probably has some mistake in it somewhere, and that's what makes it so special.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm coming from.
That's how I soothe myself. It's like, okay, so the Amish purposely stitch a mistake in there because nothing is perfect but God. So I'm just going to, I did that on purpose. I didn't mean to do
God made me do it, actually.
That's right. Because nothing is perfect except him.
No, that's. So what do you do?
Oh, I was just gonna say that Firelake says that lately they keep ending early, so she has to add yarn for just one more row. I've done that before.
Yarn chicken, losing at yarn chicken. Oh, that stinks.
Or miscounting my rows. I've done that so many times. So myself, I'll tell you what, I am, I can't make the obscene gesture, but imagine it's a hand with one finger up. When I get to the point where I am, if it's too far down, in my past, I used to rip it out because I was a perfectionist. But then I realized, oh my God, that's a lot of work to put all that back in. So unless it is an absolute, this is screwed up and it looks completely wrong, I will not rip it back. I will just let whatever it is be. However, if it is missing like a fundamental part of, this is supposed to look like something and we've got one missing, so there, so there's now this weird empty hole there, I will give it some serious consideration if I'm still working on it. I have a tendency to not notice things like that until I'm well beyond where I could go back and do it easily. So a lot of times I'll just let it go, and I have to just like not notice it. I get to a place where I just go, you know what? I don't care anymore, because otherwise it will drive me crazy seeing it. And now it doesn't mean that every time I look at that Afghan, my eye doesn't go immediately to that spot. But just,
now that's because you know what it's supposed to look like. Again, that goes back to, what is the general public going to see?
Right.
And will they care?
Exactly it.
So, and if you're giving it as a gift, that becomes a higher priority, because you don't want the recipient going, oh gosh, I wonder what happened there.
Yeah, it has to be super, super noticeable for me to go back.
Right.
But if it's something that's sewn together, say like I've got a granny square that's already been sewn in, if it's just a matter of maybe I missed a couple stitches and there's like a little extra gap there, I might go in and just stitch those pieces together just to kind of close that gap.
You can also go in and crochet an extra stitch. No one will know you did it. It just means you have a couple of ends to weave in. But let's say, this will happen to me. I'll be working on a granny square and notice that in one of my granny squares only has 2 double crochets. So I might go back and just take that yarn and do a standing double crochet and fix it.
Yeah.
So it looks like everything else. So I will do that.
That's a good idea too. But yeah, I unless it's just blaringly obvious or glaringly obvious, however you say it, I will typically just leave it, because I've learned that it's just the amount of work that it's going to take for me to put it all back in there is for me, it's detrimental, because my arms just, I can't do it anymore. But we do have a question on here. Make a decision about whether or not to frog, and how far back is the mistake? How much does the mistake affect the appearance or final outcome of the project? That's what we've been talking about. But it's really to each your own. You have to make that decision for yourself. Let's see.
Oh, and Fire Lake Creations is talking about the yarn being too difficult to frog. And we talked about that in a previous episode where it has enough halo on it. It keeps getting stuck on itself as you try to frog it. Holy cow, that is so frustrating because every stitch you're having to disconnect the hairs, the fibers. And it just becomes, if it's too far back, it's nearly impossible to get it in. And then you're messing with the integrity of the yarn because you're stripping the fibers as you go. So
I've
that
done
becomes
that
a
too, where
consideration.
I've taken that back. Like if it's a circle, I do a lot of circle stuff. And if I take it back to like the very beginning of it, and I've peeled apart as much as I can and gotten through as many fiber clumps as I could. A lot of times I'll just throw that little section away because the closer the stitches are together, the tighter they are, and the more gnarled together everything is. This is awful. So
it's a pain in the butt. Well, I'm going to bring up a common mistake that people do all the time because I get a lot of questions. This is kind of the main reason I get questions about my patterns is misreading the pattern, right? So I don't know about you, but when I start a new pattern that was written by someone else, I do a quick scan of the pattern just to see what I'm getting myself into. Just kind of browsing through to figure out where the pitfalls are, if there are any new stitches I need to learn, all of that kind of stuff. But a quick scan, I do this all the time. A quick scan, I go, yep, I got it, go. And then sure enough, I don't got it and I shouldn't go. And so how do I prevent that? Well, I read more closely and pay attention to the pattern notes. Because usually the designer, the ones that we deal with, have everything you need in the pattern. You just need to read it and pay attention.
Yeah. I'd love to say that I'm one of those people that's really super responsible and literally my quick scan is like, okay, it said it had 7 pages. Do I have all 7 pages? All right,
I tend not to go for the 7-page ones, but all right.
I'm terrible about it because I'm so impatient. It's just such a part of my personality. I'm a jumper inner. I'm a, get right on it kind of girl. And I count my costs later when all of a sudden I'm going, what is
that didn't work.
What is this? This does not look like that at all. So sometimes it's maybe I downloaded a UK written pattern and I am doing it in the wrong double crochet, or maybe it's like sometimes just really
been there, done that,
and paying attention will get rid of a lot of those problems.
Yeah, doing a UK pattern with US, reading it as US produces a twice as big project.
Yes, all of a sudden you're going, my God.
Wait, why is this so big?
How does it get so huge? So I typically won't buy a lot of patterns unless it's like amigurumi or something like that. So I still don't know how these people use these tiny little hooks and this tiny little yarn, and their finished project is like 3 centimeters big, and I'm 3.5 inches
5 inches.
Yeah, I just can't go that small. How do you
not
do
gonna
that?
happen? Well, there's a reason why I don't do amigurumi, because you've got bulky weight yarn with a 3.5 millimeter. I've edited patterns like that with a 3.5 millimeter hook, and I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, better you than me. So anyway, misreading patterns just means that scan it, yes, but you need to go back and just really read it carefully to avoid having to frog.
Well, and as you have on here on our notes, read the pattern notes and instructions. If you don't read the pattern, at least pay attention to the notes, because the notes are going to have something that's going to occur later on, and you're going to say, "Oh, I'm well versed in that. I know what that is."
Or that happens universally through the pattern.
Right.
Something never counts as a stitch, or
Mhm.
so that actually leads us into our next point, which is
Yes,
miscounting stitches. Oh
Yeah.
man, this is a big one. I can't get that many stitches on this row. Well, did you XYZ? So the pattern will tell you what stitches count as stitches. And yeah, I agree that there are patterns every now and then. I'm guilty of it too. You can't catch all of the mistakes before a pattern goes out to publish. You try as hard as you can.
Hard as you try, yeah.
So, right. So a stitch count, if it is correct, then you need to go back and make sure that you've worked into the turning chain if you're supposed to do that. If there was a decrease or an increase somewhere that you missed, a stitch pattern that you didn't quite work right, just go back and check to make sure that you've got all of that stuff. And something I say all the time is count often, count all the time. It's a pain in the rear end and it feels like a waste of time.
It
But
can be.
sometimes I'll count every row or every round just because I know that I do not want to go back and frog that.
Yeah. If it's one of those ones where the stitches are simple and I have a tendency not to count those. But if I've got one where I'm manipulating stitches and skipping stitches and, crisscrossing or going over, if there's a lot of activity happening in that row, I will count every single time, just because I know me, I have a tendency, my eyes aren't so great. So sometimes when it says skip 2 behind a particular set of stitches, I might only skip 1. Or I might, I'll all of a sudden I've thrown my entire row count off.
Right.
And Firelink brings up another good point.
Oh, yes, I will put that up. Hold on. Yes, this common thing. You can make assumptions about those turning chains but they're not universally understood. The pattern should tell you whether it does or doesn't count. And if it does count, you work into it on the next pass.
Yes.
Right? So if it's at the end of a row, you work into it because that's where you count as a stitch.
A lot of times when I'm working in half double crochet or double crochet, whatever, I do a lot of round stuff. So I hate that when you come up to a chain 3 and then there's this weird little gap right there that's always there. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. So I have a tendency to start with like a chain 2 or something, because all that does is it just fills in that gap. And then I double crochet into that same spot and then go around. And then when they meet up, it's an aesthetic thing. But I always put in there that chain 2 that starts that row. That is not a stitch. Do not count that. Don't put anything in it.
Right. And that's part of making your work look professional.
Yeah.
How did you make it look so pretty? Right.
Stand hold.
And use stitch markers. Stitch markers, right?
Yes, they are.
Or stitch. I'm not a fan of stitch counters because I always manage to mess it up. Then I go, wait,
what? I forget.
Or I forget to mark it.
And then you're like, click. Wait. And then I've got the little one that you put on your finger and you go click. Who has the time to stop after every single one?
Just move a stitch marker. I was actually working in the round, and I have a way of starting a round that kind of pulls the first stitch down a little bit. It's a little bit shorter, but when you join to it, it pulls it up and you don't even notice it. So it's not a big deal. But sometimes it's hard to tell whether that pull down is the chain I used that doesn't count as a stitch, or if it's actually the stitch. So I've just given up and put a stitch marker in that first stitch, and then I don't have to mess around with it.
And especially like if you're working on a sweater or something like that, and it says, I want you to do this specific increase every 4 rows. Well, I stick a stitch marker on both sides, going all the way up. Because I tell you what, more times that I have had to go back and count the whole thing over again. And like, wait, was that an increased row? What was I? Forget it. You know what? Stitch markers save your life.
But there are some stitch patterns that you simply can't see the rows. You simply can't see them. For instance, I did a hat and a scarf in even moss stitch, which is an alternating slip stitch with a half double crochet. You literally can't tell where one row starts and the next one ends, right? So I had to put stitch markers at the ends of the rows and say, all right, this distance represents this many rows, and then just keep putting. I wouldn't take it out. I would just put another one in at that interval so I could
that's how I work
it, right? Oh my gosh. There are some that are just impossible to tell. Herringbone half double crochet. Holy cow. Everything's slanting all kinds of crazy ways. Deb, working on the sleeves.
On your cardigan.
Oh, right. Dawn. Okay. So Dawn, are you working on the worsted weight or the bulky weight? Because that'll make a difference. Do tell.
I really need to make that sweater because I've been watching all the people making it in your group. It's so pretty and it looks so easy to make.
It's so easy and it's so comfy, let me tell you. It's just it's like wearing a fitted blanket. It's gorgeous. If you're working on the sleeves from my version, and I loved it. Yeah, so this isn't a total aside, but this is where the two versions, put a marker on those, because trying to count the rows when you're working front post, back post is just crazy. I figured out how to do it, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress. So there's one.
Okay.
All right.
Good project.
Well, our next point is actually skipping turning chains, right? So that's a common mistake.
Sorry.
Biz,
do
you remember, there's kind of a hierarchy and understanding that certain heights of turning chains do count as stitches and some don't. So that if the pattern doesn't state, that you can figure it out. Do you remember what that is?
I don't think I've ever heard of that. However, just having done so many things over the years, I would say that a chain 1 does not usually ever count as a stitch.
Not usually, no.
Chain 2 is iffy. A chain 3 is about where they start counting that as a double crochet and pretty much everything up.
Right. So one way to tell if a pattern doesn't say is whether that you chain at the beginning of a row.
Yep.
Where does the first actual stitch go? Does it go in the same stitch as the turning chain, or does it go in the next? And if it goes in the next, 99% of the time that turning chain is going to count as a stitch. Otherwise, you're going to have a slanted edge.
Yeah.
But you're right. Chain 1, I don't remember when that has ever counted as a stitch because it's too short.
And a lot of times, if people are counting it as a stitch, they'll put it in that pattern and say, make sure you count this.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see if it does. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I've done this one. So Biz, have you ever picked the wrong pattern?
Many times. Many. And it's usually not really based on my skill level because I can do pretty much anything. But I find myself getting bored very easily. It's kind of like reading a book. You've got to snatch me in the first 5, pages, or I am not probably going to read you. There are people like, oh, just muscle through it. It gets better. I don't know about that. So, when it comes to things with my hands, especially, I'm very guarded about what I do. And if I don't love it in the first like 5 to 6 rows of what we're doing, because I'll look at that point, that's when I go, okay, wait a minute. And then I'll look at the whole pattern. I'll say, do
Okay.
I want to keep doing?
Probably.
Is this going to change? And then, so
Oh
yeah,
my
usually
gosh.
my taste, it just doesn't match up. But there are ones where I will try them out and I love them so much. Like I have to make like 17 of them all at once.
There you go. Yeah, I used to be that person before I got a clue that would see a picture of a knitted or crocheted garment and go, I have to make that.
Yes.
Not considering my body type. You know, there are a lot of things that do not look good on me. And if I'm going to make it, I better be able to wear it, right?
Yeah.
So I would do this all the time. I would jump on the gravy train and, you know, go get the yarn. And it was always really expensive yarn, of course.
Of course.
And start it and go, that's awful. Or get it done and try it on and go, that really looks awful. So I had to learn to be able to look at a pretty picture. I mean, this is marketing 101.
Yes.
They get you with the pretty picture.
Snag it.
Right? So looking at the picture and going, all right, is this going to look good in the colors that I want to do it in?
Right. And
on me or for them, and I've gotten a lot better at not choosing things that are wrong for me. Oh, it was terrible.
Sometimes I don't make a lot of garments. What I do, if I do want to make a garment, I find somebody I want to give it to, and I'll be like, hey, if I make this, will you wear it? And then, then I'll either make it or not. But I do a lot of scarves and shawls without having a recipient in mind. What my mistake usually is I choose some fiddly little, like, super thin, like really thin yarn,
fingering weight, lace weight,
that you can go 75 stitches and it's only this big. And I just, when I'm working on those, that's when I'm like, how badly do I want to do this?
I know.
Yeah, so those are the ones that I usually have a tendency to back off on, and have to reevaluate my life and my choices. But otherwise, for the most part, the only one I don't mind making sweaters. Usually, I don't have a problem with it. My daughter, I had one. Oh, it wasn't Hobie. It was Lovecrafts. There was a free pattern for this really beautiful little checkered shorty sweater, and it was so cute, and I made it for her. And as I was making it and I was beginning to put it together, there were no assembly instructions for this thing. None. And I just went,
wow.
This is the last time I'm making this. Now I finished it, and it's gorgeous, and it's still wearable, and she took really good care of it. And she's like, I could use this in like 3 more colors. I'm like, no, just no, because it was so stressful putting that together, because it's that perfectionist thing. I cannot have this sweater looking like it was homemade. I know that sounds really like, oh my God, she's so hoity-toity. Now it's perfectionism, and it can be very damaging, and that stops me from doing a lot of things. But it's beautiful, and I'm glad she wears it, and I'm glad she enjoys it, but she's not getting any more.
Not happening.
Because it stressed me out. Oh wait, how did we get off
now?
On
you
that?
and I, no, you and I we're pretty advanced. Our skill level's pretty advanced, although I will admit there are crochet techniques that I haven't tried or I'm not very good at, which I could list, but no one needs to hear that list. But, well, okay, one of the things on my list is Tunisian. I have tried it. I'm not bad at it, but I would never choose a pattern to make a blanket or especially a garment or something, because it just doesn't fit my crochet style. So it's tedious for me to work with. And I'm not really very good at it. So I have to
I'd rather just
struggle
knit it.
with, yeah. So that, matching your skill level, you can be advanced like we are and still find things that just get your panties in a twist.
I can't do
So
broomstick lace.
don't choose those. Oh, you can't.
No,
No.
and I'm not a big fan of Tunisian either. I know it's just exploded and everybody's doing it, and more power to you, people. But it's just I can't. It's so slow. That's one of those ones where I look at the pattern. I go, do I really want to do this?
Well, yeah, I see that you love the return pass, of course, because that's the easy part
Yes.
of Tunisian is the return pass.
Yes.
Yarn over, pull through two, yarn over, but it's the picking up and getting all those loops on my hook that is just, that's
and
it.
For me,
Okay.
when I started working with Tunisian, I couldn't get it. I couldn't get my oh God, what's the what's the word when we make it nice and pretty and it has the same all the way through? Like my gauge, but my tension. I couldn't get my tension to be great through the whole thing. And I would have one was wonky over here and is fat over here and so it irritated me.
Yep. So anyway, we got off on Tunisian. That's a long way to say that your skill level doesn't have to mean you can't, there's not something that you want to consider. I think the next two things on our list probably go together, using the wrong hook size and the wrong yarn, although choosing the wrong yarn, that one. Have you ever, this is before I knew better, substituted a yarn for something that the pattern called for because you liked something better? And it was completely wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Completely wrong.
I still do
There's
that.
no way you can meet gauge. There's no way you can meet gauge. None. Zippo.
Yep.
Not going to happen in any universe. So learning how to substitute yarn and hook size is just, if your project is too big or too small, adjust the hook size. There's nothing that says you have to use the hook size that the designer used. All of us have different tensions, so you can adjust that hook size. Don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a quick fix.
Yeah. All right. This one is for Fire Lake. So not getting enough yarn. Now I want to go back to your comment about, let's see, where did you put it? Lately I keep ending early, so I have to add yarn for just one row. So does that mean that you run out of yarn and play yarn chicken, or you're just altering the pattern? Because buying enough yarn's a thing, especially if you're substituting yarn, making sure you have enough yardage, because dye lots don't match. And it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, it is. There's nothing worse than having to try and find the same dye lot of something. And if it's been long,
I was using a yarn from I was using a yarn from a major yarn company where you can be a little bit less careful about dye lots because they're standard formulas across the board. But it's just a light tan. And in a yarn that I've used for years, bought one set and then needed a little bit more for a blanket I was making. And it was, you can tell that it's different. And they must have changed the formula somehow for that dye, for that particular color, because it's not the same. Yarn.
Yeah. Oh, I get it.
Oh, so I see. Yeah. I see. So I have one pattern that and totally and got it. Yeah. So I think you can get away with that as long as there's nothing that has to be worked on one side or the other.
Yeah, yarn chicken does suck.
Yeah. With ribbing, and I ended the ribbing one row early at the second end. Yeah, I mean, as long as you don't have some jig or jag that creates, who cares? You're the
Yeah.
only one who knows,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and sometimes if you're doing a sleeve and it ends like you should have had 17 rows and you ended with 16, sometimes you could just leave it and get away with it. It depends on if when you put it on, if it's really super visible on your, on your wrist or whatever. Because I've done that too, where all of a sudden you're like, oh, I am going to take out the yarn and add that last row because it looks weird.
Yeah, this is one I hate, Biz. She says, yeah, I just added in yarn in both cases, so it gives me more ends to weave in. Gotta love that problem. Of course, I'm the weave in ends queen. So I am familiar with the beast.
Oh yeah, because you would just, all right, here we go. I'm just catching up with the notes. The discovering that the die lots don't match and cause color differentiation that's noticeable. Let's see. You've got some answers for that. Buy an extra skein, one more skein.
Yeah, if the yarn isn't too expensive, I would go ahead and just grab an extra skein,
right?
Just in case.
Even if you, unfortunately, that's kind of how I've built my stash, is because I have gotten in the habit of doing that. Just because there's been too many projects where even the whites sometimes will change color. Yep. How does that happen?
Who knew? White is the absence of colors. How does that right? I don't know.
Double check your die before you start your project. That's another thing to do as well, is make sure that all of your skeins have the same number on them. Mm-hmm. I had to teach my husband how, because he would go to the store and he'd bring me 2 or 3 skeins and I'm like, these don't match. You've got to go back and find me the ones that match. Yeah. And he has finally learned that to look at all the numbers before he leaves the store.
Yeah, this is the solution. If you have an extra skein afterwards, then you just make a scrappy project next. I like it.
Exactly.
Just collect all the colors. When you order online, you have to hope that the yarn company has given you all the same die lot. Now, generally they will. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit, I just don't pay attention when I order it. I don't go buy yarn in person much, if ever, anymore, because the yarn shops around me just don't carry what I need. Yeah. So I kind of assume that the yarn company's done that for me. That might not be the case. I need to check more closely, I think.
I think, I buy from Wool Warehouse quite a bit. They're very conscientious about making sure that your die lots are the same. I occasionally buy from Lovecrafts. They are usually pretty conscientious about it as well. I have ordered from Hobby Lobby, but to me, everything's so right down the street. It doesn't make sense for me to, and I've never really had to buy yarn in enough of a bulk to worry about it from a place that's close by. Right. So the only thing that we do make sure of, though, is like if it's 3 or more skeins, we make sure everybody has the same die lot, unless it's cotton and then making dishcloths out of it, then nobody cares.
Right. Nobody cares.
So, yeah.
Well, right. I think the last 3 things we've talked about ad nauseum in our broadcast, but we'll just bring them up because they're common mistakes. You just mentioned tension, right?
Yes.
That can get you into trouble if you're making a big project. Mm-hmm. Are you tired? Are you wired? Are you, have you put it down for a while? Tension can change. Yes. So you just kind of have to pay attention if it's something that needs to be fitted.
Yeah. I even noticed, I don't notice it so much anymore, but in my youth, I would notice that when I was angry, I crocheted very tight.
Wow.
Yes. And I don't do that anymore. I can be irritated and still maintain tension. But that's just because I've been doing it for 30 years now.
Angry crochet. I think that should be a hashtag.
But
Angry crochet. Okay.
angry crochet, when I first started doing it though, it was my emotions definitely dictated how tight and how loose things were.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even things like how much moisture is on your hands. How dry are your hands?
Yes.
You know, I put lotion on my hands all the time, but there might still be a sticky spot that the yarn keeps getting caught on. Or, you know, it just depends if you're, I do like to crochet outside in the summertime, but you know, your hands get a little sweaty when you're crocheting just because of the heat. Oh yeah, here we go. My tension can totally change based on my mood. Sometimes I just have to put the project aside for a different one. That's always sad to me to have to put something aside because I can't get my stuff together. But
and sometimes
you
it's
know,
the project and it needs a timeout.
thank you. You're out of here. Yep.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Down over there before I cut you. Literally.
And reaching for the scissors. Anyway.
I've decided.
But tension.
I've decided.
Tension gauge. There's only so much of that tension problem that you can block out.
For sure.
So you have to just and I don't know. Speak to me about blocking, Biz. Do you block a lot of stuff when you crochet it?
I used to be a never blocker, and then I started making more garments and shawls and things like that. So it depends on the project for me. If it's a shawl, I will usually always block it just because it makes the stitches in your project pop out. You've put a lot of work, and a lot of them have got such detailed stitching in it that you put all that work in. Now take it just one step further and block it so that it's beautiful. I will occasionally on blankets if they're just funky and wonky. Like when we did our memories blanket, I had a whole section that just went like this. And so once I had my sides on, I blocked it so that it would be straight. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it depends on what's going on and how ugly whatever it is turning out. So
yeah, I do block squares in blankets a lot if they tend to be, it's not that they're not square, they just don't lie flat nicely. And so for the blanket not to look like it has waves in it, I'll block those squares. They're all the same size, they just need to lay nicely flat, and it just relaxes those stitches a little bit to be nice and flat.
And this is going to sound kind of controversial and maybe a little judgy. I view blocking as how professional do you want your project to look? How clean do you want it to be when you're done? We're talking about you and I, we're designing something. So we want it to show and present as beautiful as it possibly can. So we have a tendency to block things because it needs to present absolutely gorgeous. There are times when you can throw stuff together or make a blanket real quick and the sides are all like super wavy and whatever, and you're going to give it to somebody and they're just going to love it to death and nobody's going to care.
Because they're going to wrap up in it anyway.
That's exactly it. So, but if you want it to look a certain way, maybe you're donating it to somebody who's going to use it for a fundraiser or whatever, I would say at that time, block it. Make sure that you get all that so it doesn't look like somebody's aunt sat in a trailer somewhere and made a blanket. You know, I know that sounds terrible, and I don't mean it to sound like that. But you don't want it to look like a garage sale. You want it to look professional and pretty.
Right, exactly.
What you are making. And so that's where I'm don't throw things at me. But put a little bit more effort into it and it just brings it up that one little notch.
Yeah. I love this. Blocking can fix a multitude of sins. It absolutely can. And been there, done that.
Yes.
Been there, done that.
Yes. Same here. And I have fixed lots of sins with blocking. I have fixed entire sweaters with blocking.
Oh. Just steam the heck out of them.
When I say I gave it a hard look, I mean I stretched that sucker. You want to see the stitches? You're going to see every single one of them.
Oh my goodness.
But anyway, you have a really nice little blog post here. Of that, my nose. By Morning.
Yeah, I did. I found a wonderful one, and that's kind of where I came up with all of these bullet points. She did a great job of mapping out pros and cons and things. It's by morningcrafter.com.
Yeah, 10 common crochet mistakes and how to fix them. We'll have that link in the description of today's podcast so that you can find it. When you realize there's an error without starting over completely, you can use some of these different techniques to pull yourself out of a hole.
Mm-hmm.
So,
thank you. Parenthetically, air quotes and all.
I know. It's like I am here every Friday.
Yes, you are.
Anyway,
just saying.
I think we have covered fixing mistakes and what to do about a bunch of them. And if you have any questions, obviously always reach out to us. We're here for chitting and chatting at any point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what have you been watching this week, Deb?
Well, let's see. We finished watching the first season of Old Man again, which was great because we were able to figure out all the things I missed.
Is that
my husband was able to see it for the first time? No, it's Hulu.
Hulu, okay.
And it's John Lithgow and Jeff Bridges.
Oh, yeah.
Espionage. So I think we're going to start the second season here pretty quick. I finally caught up on all the network shows because we just kind of pick and choose. Watching Person of Interest again from the beginning on Prime. That we're just kind of entertaining ourselves with all of the espionage and intelligence kinds of shows right now. And we're in this dearth of sports right now. Dearth may not be the right word. Desert.
Oh.
So, I hate this period right now because I'm not a sports addict, but it does fill time on the weekend and give us something fun to do.
Nice
when
background.
Football season is over, you still have 2 months until baseball season starts.
Yeah.
And what fills the gap? All right, I'm going to apologize to all of the golf lovers out there, but I can't watch it. It's like watching paint dry to me.
It is.
So that's what fills the airwaves once. And basketball, NBA basketball, just doesn't light my flame either. Yeah. So there's this, we go through this period of, okay, there's no live sports on. What do we do now? But there are lots of movies and stuff we need to get caught up on. So it's not like one of the streaming services we have doesn't have something we could watch. Good grief. Right. But anyway, that's kind of where we are right now. And you, Miss Biz, what are you watching?
So we have filled that little gap between, pretty much football and football, because Tony doesn't really watch baseball either, with rugby.
Ah, nice.
And all of the rugby 7 tournaments start right about February, March-ish. So we'll start watching that on weekends once football's done. But for our...
Where do you watch that?
We watch that on Peacock. If you go to Peacock and then there's the little football or the sports symbol on the left-hand side on that row, click on that. And then there's an all sports. If you click on that little emblem,
gotcha.
Like 25 different types of sports.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, my daughter played rugby in college and she absolutely adores it. So I really need to hook her up with that so she can watch it.
We think it's so much fun to watch. And so it was kind of funny that it took off so much during the Olympics this year because we already knew who Alana Mara was, and that whole group of ladies and stuff like that. It was fun to watch them compete against each other and stuff like that at the Olympics. But anyway, so our networky kind of TV, we're working through old TV shows. Tony's currently hooked on Homicide: Life on the Streets. We were watching it together, and then all of a sudden I must have said, oh, it's okay, it's not my favorite, or I don't care if you watch it, because all of a sudden every time he's doing anything, he's what I'm like, okay, apparently I'm not watching the show with you anymore. So he's watching Homicide: Life on the Streets. And let's see, what's the other one? We're watching CSI at night. That's our nighttime TV show to fall asleep to. I know that's weird. And then we just decided to try it on a whim because we love Andre Braugher. And I didn't realize that he passed away 2 years ago, which broke my heart because he's such an amazing
Oh, right. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
So we started watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Was not expecting to like it because I'm not an Anna Sandberg fan.
Oh, it is hilarious.
So funny. Oh my gosh. So that's the only other one that we're watching right now. But then of course, we've got all our trash reality TV that we like to watch, all our competition shows. There's the Mr. Beast games. There's what else are we watching? Traders on Peacock. That one is a really good season. And if you've watched the first two, this one is a great one because it's got Boston Rob on it from Survivor and a bunch of other really smarmy people. And it's been a very good season if you like that kind of stuff. And I don't know. It's like if it has any kind of competition, or we've gotten into game shows lately, like Deal or No Deal, and some Rob the Cage or Rage in the Cage or something.
Oh, it's The Floor, isn't it?
Oh, The Floor? Yeah, that
Rob Lowe
one
is The Floor.
Finished. Actually, I shouldn't say that. That one finished a couple weeks ago, but we were really behind on it because that one's on Hulu, and we forget to go look at Hulu. So, because there's just nothing on there that we watch. But yeah, so we are all over the place. We pretty much.
You just got lots of stuff.
Well, and they're all weekly, so we've got 4 shows. And we're like, okay, is there a new one? Is there a new one tonight? So just because we're watching a lot of shows doesn't mean we actually get to see a lot of shows.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing. And then I'm attempting to get my sci-fi movies in when nobody's around, but there's always somebody here.
That may change now that everybody's well and the snow is gone and all of that stuff.
Yes. And did I tell you that my Christmas decorations are still up?
Okay. I'm going to try not to judge you, but...
Don't judge. They're coming down tomorrow.
Okay.
We have all... But for me, I like Christmas a little bit longer, but our weekends were so stinking busy. And by the time that, Steph and the baby get home from daycare, the house is just a little bit crazy, and putting stuff away at night is just it's not happening. But every weekend we had something going on. And then last weekend I was so sick. And then, so Tony said, I don't care if you fall down the stairs. We are putting those decorations away this weekend. It's like nothing is going to stop me. Because he's
February 1st, it's time.
Even come down the day after.
Okay, that's a little long then for him. That's a month or more.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. All right. It sounds like it's starting to rumble, and I'm about to get a thunderstorm here.
Oh gosh. Well.
So nobody judge me. Fire Lake hasn't put theirs away either.
Gosh, you guys, come on now. Get it done.
Out of you.
If they're still up next week, we're going to judge, but okay.
Oh, yeah. No, they're definitely coming down because even I'm sick of them. I'm tired of it. It needs to go away. There's just stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So I think that we have finally come to the end of our show. And I hope that you guys enjoyed spending some time here. I hope you had some answers. Hope you got to chit chat and participate. And if you have any questions, like we said during the broadcast, make sure you reach out to us. We are always willing to help you. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.